Hey everybody, this is Perch. I did the big New York City Comic Con recap, and then a couple videos talked specifically about Vertigo. Going to talk about another thing that happened at New York City Comic Con, which is kind of the continuing saga of old Nick Lowe, who is the group editor of Spider-Man, and probably one of the more present editors. I guess it depends on your point of view. Obviously, Tom Brevoort has a presence on social media. He has a blog he writes. Jordan White back in the day would kind of ebb and flow. Like sometimes he was posting promoting the X books. Sometimes he was posting and promoting his ukulele playing, and sometimes he was just quiet. So it's always kind of there was a lot of different eras of him. DC editor is a little bit quieter, I would say, just in general on social media. But right now, I think Nick Lowe has taken the torch of being more front and center and probably a little bit more spicy with fans. And here is where this is my suspicion, my hunch, my perception of what's going on. You might have a different take, and that's fine. But let me kind of back up a little bit, explain more or less what happened, and then we can kind of take it from there. So basically, um, at a panel, and there was a number of different reports on it. Um, and I'll just read. Here's one person's report. Nick Lowe was on the panel. It says, "I'm not there, but my sister was," meaning at this Spider-Man panel. "It was super effing quiet and awkward when Lowe was introduced for Q&A, and quite a few people walked out. The dude keep that dude." So basically, what the report is, there's somebody who went and got in a bit of a fight with Lowe, and when I say fight, I mean verbal. In the Q&A, it says that dude did keep asking Lowe about Kamala, and Lowe was snappy and kept trying to avoid it before they finally took the mic from the dude. Now, what is this question? The question basically, the guy was saying, why did you fridge Kamala? Why did you, why is it that you had somebody die? Not even in her own comic, but in somebody else's comic, and was barely there, just kind of a bit player. There's a couple other examples of this, or a couple other people who weighed in on it, but basically, it was that he, the fan comes up, fans like, Kamala appeared in like 20 some odd panels, not many, in the Amazing Spider-Man run. You kill her in this comic, and basically it was disrespectful, bad for the character, everything else. This wasn't, and so you hear so much on social media, by the way, and from creators about, alt-right toxic fandom, and you get those people talking about, Kamala shouldn't even be in a comic, that kind of stuff. This wasn't the case. This was a fan who was a big Kamala fan, somebody who liked the character, and somebody who felt like she was done dirty by Spider-Man, basically killed off in that book. Anyway, this turned into an argument. Nick Lowe's like, no, and just kind of snappy is the right word. And this is going to go into my take on Lowe in general, which is more or less a very arrogant guy who isn't taking this seriously. When I say isn't taking it seriously, I mean is not taking the fact that fans are legit pissed seriously, that people are annoyed and irritated by his run. And he's still behaving a little bit like, yeah, we've got the number one comic in the world. Oh, I got a couple cranks on me. We'll get back to that in a minute. This kind of plays into, by the way, the "They Don't Hate You" videos I've done. It's a similar viewpoint from these guys. It's not like Nick Lowe is like, my mortal enemy are these fans who say that they don't like Spider-Man. His attitude is, these people are unimportant. They're tiny little insects. It's a little bit like the attitude that Apple, for what it's worth, has against people who don't like Apple products. I like Apple products. I've got plenty of them. But I draw on my tablet, and the stylus, the Apple Pencil, is questionable. There's better stuff, especially if you go to Japan. They've got really nice stylus pens. I go into an Apple store and I say, hey, I'd like, I'm looking for a really good stylus. Like, well, this is what we got. It's the best there is. There's nothing better than this. Almost Trumpian, like, this is the best. It's the most beautiful pen. There's never been a pen like this. Nobody else has a pen. And I'm like, no. I show him the old one I have. The guy's like, no, that pen doesn't exist. I'm like, no, I'm holding it in front of your face, you jackass. And anyway, but that's how Lowe comes across to me, as somebody who is just thoroughly so far up his own ass that he can't even contemplate that there might be a different opinion out there. But anyway, we'll continue. So more on this report. It says several people asked similar questions, meaning about Kamala, and some are asking, why wouldn't they just let Pete and MJ get back together like everybody wanted? Lowe basically refused to answer any of them, and the whole thing was super effing awkward. Man clearly acts in real life exactly like he does when he's hiding behind a screen to the letter pages. Speaking of the letter pages, she was going to ask him if he realized how obvious it was that he was the one writing some of those letters, but they cut the Q&A off before she could. I think they cut it short because Lowe was getting so visibly frustrated. Also said when they show the trailer of and Peter and Felicia were kissing, several people groaning very loudly. Embarrassing, but I'm not really sure how they saw this going any other way. Anyway, there are a number of other takes all about the same, but it really is part of a pattern. And so to Nick Lowe specifically, the Amazing Spider-Man title, if you're looking at pure sales, it has traditionally done well. This latest run hasn't been a super successful one. And I think there was a certain element of the Nick Spencer run was, average received in terms of sales. People, it generally tried to right some wrongs. I think for Nick Spencer, there's a little bit of redemption because a lot of fans were still salty over his handling of Captain America. But in general, it was fairly well received. It was building. For what it's worth, the internet overplays the Ultimate Spider-Man is kicking ass and Peter and MJ getting back together is the entire reason why. It is doing well. It is outselling Amazing Spider-Man. You also have Jonathan Hickman on there, who is probably the most bankable writer you've got in terms of sales at the moment in comics. You have a Marco Cicchetto. You have a fairly new universe. It is the centerpiece of this Ultimate Universe, and it's doing very well. Ultimate Spider-Man is far more the crown jewel of that line than the Avengers is. So, it's not all about Peter and MJ, but it's partly about Peter and MJ. If you're reading Ultimate Spider-Man, it is also not, it's not all fan service. It's not all everything being done for the fan. Made the comment about Felicia there. There absolutely is an element of, giving the fans some of what they want. But I mean, this tells you how abused the Spider-Man fan base is, quite frankly, because if you're looking at Ultimate Spider-Man and saying, finally, the fans getting everything they want, that they're not close. I mean, again, this is not to beat up on the title. It's fine. It's a good book. I'm enjoying it, but it just tells you how long fans of that character have suffered with kind of obnoxious Lucy pulling the football away takes on this character, and how desperate they are for just, something that more or less resembles, a comic they want, when you have Ultimate Spider-Man, where the Peter MJ relationship is extremely background. In some ways, I enjoy it because I think that is a lot of how the comic was like during the 90s when Peter and MJ were together. It wasn't like it wasn't like MJ was the centerpiece of every title. She was a supporting character, and she's much the same in Ultimate Spider-Man. But for Nick Lowe, and if you've been following the guy online, there is an attitude of just being extremely sarcastic and extremely salty to fans who ask for or push the Peter MJ. And don't get me wrong, I'm sure it would be annoying to hear that every year for your entire career on this Spider-Man book. I'm sure that would get tiring. And I'm sure that fans often ask in a, thoroughly obnoxious, annoyed, fed up kind of way. And I'm sure that's also exhausting and tiring. But there's a couple antidotes to that. And one is you give the fans what they want. I understand there is the perception of, well, you can't give the fans what they want because then the fans would start dictating the title. And you've heard creators speak out about that. It's like, if you just give the fans everything they want, then all you're doing is being an order taker for the fans. And that's an extreme point of view. This isn't like the fans are saying, we want one issue where he goes to Hawaii, and the next issue we're going to want him fighting the Green Goblin for exactly 3 issues, and then we're going to want to bring back Venom, and you better do everything I'm saying. They're not giving those kind of orders. They're speaking about a very broad general thing, which was, hey, we like the relationship of Peter and MJ. We would like that relationship to return. Fans aren't saying how to do that. They're not spelling out exactly what needs to happen. They're not saying it needs to be an event. They're not saying it needs to be a one shot. They're not saying it needs to be, all of this erased. They're basically saying we ship these two characters. You should bring that back. And Marvel has a choice of saying, I think there's two ways you could attack that. You could go, yeah, we hear you, but we're telling different stories right now, and sorry, we're not giving you what you want. Which, in fairness, they've done somewhat. Or you get the attitude Nick Lowe is taking right now, which is simultaneously in denial and sarcasm to the fans. And this is what I'm saying. It's not Nick Lowe hating you. It's Nick Lowe dismissing you. You could say those are the same thing. That's fine, by the way. I think part of the back and forth we had in a lot of those videos about being hated was we're kind of talking over each other. People have broadened the definition of hatred more than I have. Okay, that's fine. I acknowledge that. But what's basically going on here is an attitude of, I'm on top of the world. I've got a popular comic. I don't have to listen to you. And just basically, any criticism equals invalid. So, you don't matter to me. That's what comes across in those tweets. Now, is that how he truly feels in his heart? Who knows? We don't have it on the table to examine. But that's how it writes. That's how it comes across. That's definitely the perception that came out on this show. And it's extremely damaging. In comics, comics, as we're all seeing, aren't doing amazing. And comics are very much hanging on to, traditional collectors, fans who just do not want to break their runs. The sad truth of it is, the Amazing Spider-Man sales numbers, a decent percentage of them, meaning, more than 5%, probably close to half would be my guess, are long-term collectors who are basically hanging in there, hoping it changes someday. So I don't think it's a small group. I think it's an actually extremely large group. I argued personally with Dan Slott a lot over this topic. I believe that the collector base is what's propping up the book and what's giving it its numbers. And if you want to continually treat that audience like they're morons, and that's kind of the problem. It's so demeaning. It's talking down to that audience by doing this. Yeah, well, that's not going to happen, jackass. It's just, hell, you now have people who are, fans of Kamala Khan, who knows? I'm kidding. You have fans of that character who are upset with you. Like you've scorched earth everyone. And the common thread here is not, toxic fans. It is a bad attitude from the editor who comes out and just acts like everybody is beneath him. And there's such kind of hubris in that. It's a dangerous position to take because first of all, it's a very tenuous position. If sales fall on Spider-Man, and Disney is not, put it this way, Disney will pay attention a lot more to Spider-Man than other titles they probably should pay attention to, like X-Men. But Disney will pay attention to Spider-Man. If Spider-Man sales start to plummet, right now the whole thing's getting kind of masked a little bit because when Disney really looks at the numbers, they're looking at Spider-Man as a whole. They've got the Spider-Verse and the Venomverse and the Ultimate Spider-Man. They've got like this giant pile of books making up Spider-Man. But the core title dropping off the face of a cliff, and then you turn around and you see the guy who's leading it just has this antagonistic, this mocking kind of view of his own readers. That's a sign of stuff that changes your position in a hurry. And I've had this point of view. I've been around, talked to, and worked in and around Marvel for quite some time as a retailer, doing other things. The attitude has always trended arrogant. This is a part of the Marvel culture. If you were to ask me just at high level, what's the difference between DC and Marvel corporate kind of, people, Marvel people have more arrogance. There's a little bit more of we're the big show. We know it. we have the biggest characters, we have the big sales, and we're on top of the world. The challenge is, you look at the other announcements, that the general feeling of Marvel is that they're lost. There's very little energy at all in their line. And, they're selling stuff, but there's no buzz. And so I think that arrogance is really, they're sitting by themselves on that. And you've seen this happen with lots of different companies where they are very self-assured of their own strength. And then one day they wake up and they're like, hey, nobody's coming to our party anymore. And it's like, no, we're still cool. We're still cool. If you come hang out with us. And it's like, no, the ship has sailed, man. That's a little bit what it feels like. Anyway, I don't know. I'm not a fan of the guy. I've met him in person. Same kind of cocky attitude. So I don't know. I think people above all else should be humble. And that's, yeah, well. Anyway, what do you think? Let me know in your comments below. And thanks for listening.